Zookeepers of Reddit, how are the animals acting differently now that there are no visitors to the zoo? For a lot of our animals, having the ability to interact with guests is actually extremely important. Even for primates to be able to play with kids through the gulbutt, they are missing out on a lot of enrichment. Guests keep a lot of the monkeys entertained. I watch our guests all day long show our marmosets and capuchin selfie cameras and they love to see their reflection. Guests will also show videos on their phones to animals and the monkeys totally enjoy it. We have a rescue cockatoo named Ro who sings row 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 your boat to guests. When little kids dance and sing it to her, she gets really excited and feeds off their energy. So do our other cockatoos on exhibit. But now without guests to show off for. Every now and then when it's quiet we'll hear her start row row row. And then she stop and huffs a bit and gets really quiet and sad because she has no one to sing to. Some of our animals really miss having kids to show off for. You also have to remember that animals in zoos for the most part have grown up totally accustomed to being around people 24/7. They're not wild animals at all really. They've grown up in a very different social dynamic. Quite a few animals get noticeably depressed in the winter months every year when we have few guests, and then perk up in the spring when we get busy. Any chance you could live a stream row and see if she'll sing? I'll happily be her audience. Oh my gosh, I would love to. She's so hard to get a video of sometimes because she very sporadic when she decides to sing. But I'll definitely try. P. Due to temporary staff cuts, they no longer have the people to regularly walk the wombats. Some of the wombats are holding the keepers personally responsible. Imagine having a 20-kilogram chunk of muscle with big rodent teeth mad at you. Can confirm. I'm not happy with the current situation. Most of our animals are happy as long as we can keep their routines, feeding times etc. For some they need a little extra. We do public encounters with our koalas, wombats and snakes among others, so we spend an hour or so a day cuddling and handling these animals to keep them happy. A few of our koalas really fret if they don't get their cuddles. Otherwise we just try to continue to spend time with animals that are expecting human interaction, and of course we can take things for walks around the place, like I'm sure you've seen at other zoos. Our wombats love a run and sniff. Dingoes as well. Edit. Thanks all for the interest, questions and remarks. Thanks also for the awards. I don't work at Australia Zoo for those of you asking. I do live on Kangaroo Island and our facility is pretty easy to find with some light searching. It is a privilege to work with wildlife each and every day, and it's something I take very seriously, but still appreciate the jokes and humor from everyone. If you have specific questions it's perhaps best to DM me, Rip and Barks, otherwise they'll probably get lost in the comments. Thanks again. Your job is to cuddle koalas. And I'm stuck in home all alone. At least you don't have chlamydia. Kangaroo Island's koalas are the only chlamydia-free population in Australia. Not to mention you'd be hard pressed to catch it unless you were doing unspeakable things to a koala. In our local zoo the apes started to miss the visitors, so they brought in an artist in who's now just painting in the empty monkey house so the apes had someone to watch. Edit. Whoa, this blew up overnight. Europe. They could tell they missed the visitors because they became very bored and are much more excited about the keepers than usual. Apparently they watch the visitors as much as the other way around. The keepers now have to pay them more attention to, and they also do stuff like hide food for them as a game also. Sorry for the confusion. I'm not as a keeper myself, but I live close by the zoo, and it was in the local news and such. My girlfriend is a zookeeper and animal behaviorist. She says their animals are becoming stressed. One of their African grey bads has been plucking his own feathers. She also mentioned that because they can't touch many of the animals due to the virus potentially spreading to another zookeeper, many of the animals are looking and acting depressive, not eating well, etc. That's it everyone. You're making the bird sad. Y'all are in timeout. But them being in timeout is what's making the birds sad. I take care of fish, but mostly jellyfish. The jellies don't give a single duck. It's been nice for me though, because I can turn most of their display lights off so less algae grows, and I have to do less scrubbing. My actual fish don't care. The beluga whales were screeching at the cleaning crew the other day, which was hilarious. I don't work with the whales, but it seems like they enjoy, or are at least interested in, seeing others around. Do gels care if there's light? As long as they are fed? Some species grow algae in their tentacles as a food source, like corals do, so those guys need good, consistent lighting. Otherwise it seems to not matter too much. They are also in areas that receive ambient lighting while we're working. While it isn't direct light, they are still experiencing a relatively normal light cycle. I'm an aquarium keeper, and I've certainly noticed a change. Fish are not as stressed as they used to be, as there are no longer children stomping around and banging on gillbuds screaming Nemo, Nemo. It's Nemo at every cloned fish. We brought some of our younger penguins down to let them watch the fish, and they were intrigued but confused as to why they couldn't catch them through the gillbud. Our octopus has become much more friendly as well, and instead of hiding all day from people, enjoys playing with small baby toys or solving food puzzles. It's been nice. I wish there were guidelines people had to sign to behave at zoos before entering, but at the same time, they are the lifeline we so desperately need to keep functioning. Edit. This post has gotten more love than any other post I have ever made, so I'm going to capitalize on it, now more than ever. Zoos and zoo animals need your help. I understand that it is a time of financial disparity for a lot of people, myself included, but we as humans will be fine and overcome this. Those who cannot are the species we help to conserve it as are accredited facilities. Without people having interest in wildlife, zoos themselves could now face extinction. If you have a local zoo, or a zoo you just adore, please donate. Something as small as a pizza for the keepers of your favorite animals, or a donation the price of general admittance, all the way up to buying a membership, or making a significant donation, goes so far to help us stay employed and caring for all our individuals. We are doing our best during this crisis to bring you the best experience we can, so you can social distance too. If you like what you see and have the ability, you can be sure that your donation is appreciated by every single keeper working through this time. Fellow octopus keeper here. Without the crowd scaring her into her cave, our GPO has gotten straight up feisty. She's so active. I've encouraged our parrot keepers to go past her when taking the birds on walks, just for a little extra visual stimulation. She's got quite the love affair with one of the cockatoos. I'm late to the thread, so I'm sure this will get buried, but I work for a very large, very busy as a zoo. I work with the ambassador animals, so they are animals that are very used to the public, pretty much like what everyone else has said. The animals are mostly confused that there aren't any people. Our petting zoo animals in particular are super needy. The second they see or hear us, they all come running over and start crying for attention. We are trying to give all the animals as much attention as possible, but we are down to a bare bones crew, so it's not as much as we would like. What I wanted to add, though, because I think it's incredibly interesting, is that we are collecting fecal samples from some of the animals to be tested for cortisol levels, which is a pretty good indicator of stress levels. That way, when guests come back, we can take samples for comparison to see how much guests impact stress. I think it's really cool that we are taking this opportunity to see what we can learn about how guests impact the animals, and to see if there are potentially things we can do even better to improve the lives of the animals in our care. We were really hoping to do some behavioral studies too about things like activity levels, amount of the enclosure being utilized, etc. that are also important considerations for their welfare. But unfortunately we just don't have the time or staffing. This is super cool. It's awesome that you're making the best of this situation to learn more. I'm super fascinated with this idea. My wife works at the gift shop for our zoo, and the other day we had to go move some stuff around in the store because due to some heavy rains, it had flooded a bit. Of course we took a lap around the empty park, other than the keepers and few maintenance workers, and found that all the animals were really active and playful. A lot of them seemed really curious about us too. I'm sure they get used to seeing crowds every day and were starving for attention. As a zookeeper coordinator, I've been working at the now closed zoo almost every day for the past month. Animals that are free roaming, peacocks, iguanas, are more active and follow keepers around like they usually do with visitors. Most of the others don't show much change in behavior, although birds like swans and flamingos are using the edges of their habitats more. True, I haven't found much change in pets or those animals that are being well taken care of. I have noticed that this has mostly affected stray animals whose only source of food was by eating all they found on the streets/parks. Since nobody is around, they don't get food. I do my best by feeding like 10 to 12 stray dogs who come to eat at our farm. It makes my day watching them eat. Edit. Thanks for the suggestion to get them neutered. I'll bud the suggestion to my parents. There's a bit of a balance of different behaviors that is kinda interesting. With no visitors, there is more time for enrichment. To get more creative with said enrichment, trialing new things, and exposure to enrichment that has to be supervised, which the animals are loving. Then there are certain animals that do seem to miss having public around. Our younger, 5 years old, African penguins are really seeming to miss being able to swim at the butt and interact with people. Higher intelligent animals, we have had to come up with new interactions. Lots of new training going on because they are missing the variety and variability of interactions with the public. The snakes don't give a duck though. The 2 pygmy hippos, 6 bison, giant anteater, and lowland tapir I took care of. I'm temporarily laid off. Didn't have any change in behavior. Sulcatus are still holes. How are sulcatus holes? They're just always in the way whenever you try to do anything. Raking up leftover hay? Let me just plop myself right on top. Need to dump and change our water? I just decided I need a bath. Just filled our water? Let me take a piss in it. Trying to hose the enclosure? Let me repeatedly cloth line myself. Trying to scrub my shud stains off the floor? I need to be on top of it now. And take another shot. Another tortoise is bleeding? Let me try to eat his foot overnight. Another tortoise is trying to eat my bleeding foot. Let me just sit here until someone finds me in the morning and not try to move or get away. Trying to bandage up my bleeding foot and provide antibiotics. Now's the time for me to struggle and thrash around. Oh, you installed heat lamps to help my healing process? I'm gonna sit in this corner and go on a hunger strike. Stuff like that. The guests love them though. They're likely the most popular of all the animals I took care of. I work on an activity farm. There is a 22-year-old Shire horse. He acts like a duck when there are customers around. With no customers, he's actually still a duck. That being said, he's still awesome. Edit. I've been asked what he does when there are customers. Basically, if he sees any customer feeding any other animal in the large barn where he hangs out in the day, he will stare at them and stomp his front hoof on the ground. That guarantees they look at him. If they don't immediately come over to feed him, he will start kicking the heavy metal bars that divide his area and the pen next door. This makes one hell of a noise, and he will keep it up, all whilst staring at the person with the food. If they feed him, then he rewards them by slobbering all over their hands as he takes the food. Also, at the end of the day, he is really good at telling the time. He knows when we close and what time he should be released from the barn and taken to the field/stables where he spends the night. If he isn't let out bang on time, he starts kicking the shut out of the gate at the back of his pen. This is a big metal gate, and it sounds like someone playing a giant glockenspiel with a sledgehammer. He will keep this up until it is opened. Some customers are just scared to hand feed him. He is butted and his mouth is big enough to easily fit someone's hand in. Some customers come up to me with their bag of food and ask me if I will feed him because he keeps staring at me, but I'm a bit too nervous to feed him. I happily oblige. I love that ornery old bastard. Horse trainer/barn manager here. My farm has 46 horses. About half are privately owned and boarded with us. Like most farms across the country, we are completely shut down to all but essential staff. The horses are mostly pretty happy to eat, hang out, and do horse things. We keep our horses turned out 24/7, which helps them remain healthy, happy, moving, and socializing. They are starting to lose muscling at this point. with being worked/ridden. Months or years of conditioning just disappearing by the day. But it will come back once they are all in work again. But I can tell that they are missing human interaction. My personal riding horse was giving me the cold shoulder yesterday, probably because of the lack of attention. I have been trying to give the boarded horses extra attention. I'm sure their owners are missing them terribly right now. They all seem to lean in a little more when I brush them these days. Edited to add the customary thank you to the kind Redditor for the award. My first. It made my day, nay, my week. Pun intended. Thank you. This fascinates me. My family had horses for a while when I was young. They definitely all have their own personalities. Not as a keeper, but I hear the lions a bit more from my house now. Weirdly rebudgering to wake up to and realize the world is still going on. Wait, what? Do you live on the plains of Africa, next to the GW Zoo? Or do you own lions? Nothing that exotic. Sorry to disappoint. I live very close to a large zoo in the UK. No Carol Baskin-esque dramas. The city's gotten pretty quiet with all the events going on, so the zoo noises are a lot more prominent. Can just about see the orangutans rolling about and playing hide and seek with their blankets outside if I shimmy out the Velux onto the roof. Man, that's an oddly great benefit to a house's location. I'm just tryna see the penguins walk around the zoo in person, man. That's all I want. You can meet the penguins at the zoo where I used to work. It's just outside Chicago. If you happen to find yourself there after this quarantine. They get to choose whether or not to interact with you, of course. But they will generally choose to because you have fish, which is their favorite quality in a person. Edit. It's at Brookfield Zoo. I'm not sure how much it costs, but I think around $40. I've been told that morning encounters have less kids and more opportunities for adults to attract penguin attention without being rude. Because you have fish, which is their favorite quality in a person. I get this. My daughter's favorite quality in a person is that they are a doggy. Mine too. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.